All right, so I wanted to do another preliminary video, just sort of introducing these indicators, show you the menu options, what they're capable of, and what I call certain things. I kind of invent names for stuff as I'm go along. I don't know if they're standard names or not. It's just what I call them. Uh, but so yeah, you've seen these from the last time. This is the one that actually is running the strategy that I have the alerts set up to monitor. The one on the bottom, this is kind of just for my visual understanding, and they both have a lot of more features than what you see here. And also, I want to say that keep this in mind that just because you see something on the screen does not necessarily mean that I am using that in the strategy. There's a whole lot of stuff that I like to see visually, just for myself, that is not involved in the actual strategy execution. And there are a lot more options in here. So to show you, first of all, the repainting on this. If I ever do backtest this, the backtesting is not affected by the repainting. It will always prevent repainting on the actual strategy executions. It will not. It'll give you the option insofar as the signifiers go. So, for example, if I had this on right here, and if I put this, that's the only thing that's if it'll do it. That's the only thing that is supposed to repaint. Are these little printouts, not the actual historical bars. So on that note, oh, by the way, there's a drop menu here. I can put signifiers, as you see. I can change, I've got a bunch of different oscillators in here that I may use, I've considered as alternate triggers at one point or another, and I'm kind of experimenting with the idea of having multiple triggers running simultaneously, and then only execute if two or more of them are triggered. I don't know. Most of my ideas don't pan out, and I don't necessarily take them out of here. So probably like not that much, maybe a third of what's left in here I don't actually use. They were just ideas that I had, so I programmed it in to see if it would work, and it didn't. So now it's just there, you know. Not really motivated to redo all the code unnecessarily. But it's capable of a few different things. So this DMI, which I think is way underutilized, and I can go into how exactly this is calculated. It's like a smoothed DMI. It's not your standard DMI. Uh, I've got a secondary calculation. Oh, this thing I'm calling mtrig. This is the not number two, but number one. This is the trigger that I am actually using in the strategy. And that's probably like the one thing I don't plan on actually explaining to you how it works because I'm proud of it and I don't want to share that part. But I'll share a lot of other stuff, most of it maybe. Percent ranking, uh, mtrig settings, don't worry about that. MTF, so what I have it actually doing, so we're on this bottom one here. And what I have it actually capable of doing, I can set this if I did, okay, MTF1, right? This is actually what the center line here where it turns green and sometimes, I swear, sometimes it's red. What do I have it set to? We're on the 4 hour. See that? So, so the idea here is it's displaying the higher time frame status of this same indicator of the M trig. So if this is red right here, then that means that on the higher reference time frame, the daily, the source line here, this multicolored rainbow guy, is underneath of its signal line, which is the fuchsia guy here. That's the signal line, right? So it's in this case, it's underneath both in the 4 hour and also on the daily in the upper time frame reference. So if we snap back, so right now it looks like we're getting a crossover right here on the daily, and I can go and I can look and oh, what do you know? It's crossing over just like that. Those X's indicate crossovers. And what other options do I want to show you here? The DMIs, there are settings for each different functionality. It's got the RSI on here. I could do this, and now you've got the RSI. And it might be worth making a video just on how I made these sort of zones, these support and resistance zones. I think I lost the Excel file when I spilled coffee on my last hard drive, which you think I would learn to stop putting coffee on my computer, but you know. And but the way I actually calculated these originally, I imported all of the SPY closes for like the entire history, the daily SPY closes, and then okay, calculate the RSI value, and then I say okay, which values of the RSI was the previous value and the value afterwards are both lower and or not and or are both lower or higher than that RSI value. And so so in that way I isolated those pivotal RSI values and then plotted a distribution, a probability distribution of those pivotal RSI points. And so the ones that are denser, the more dense these lines are, the more probable it was to reverse at that point. So like 75 and 35 were the most probable places to reverse, at least on the daily SPY. Maybe Bitcoin's a little bit different, but I do find that these are pretty well respected. Maybe there's a bit too much going on there, but I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds too much about that. Do do do. Yeah, or you can turn things off. All right. Anything else on here? Yeah, I don't use those anymore. Oh, and a time filter, of course. So it might be useful to isolate certain market environments. You want to make sure that your strategy is working. Like so, sometimes what I'll do, I'll set it to the January 2018, right? So we were at that market cycle high at 20K. January 2018 over to January 2019. It was a full bear market. So if the strategy can be profitable in that super bear market, then you know you got a good strategy, right? So it's useful to be able to isolate certain time windows to test your strategies on. So this one up here, a lot of the same stuff. The double down reentries, that would require margin. The reason that's why I have it turned off right now. Uh, you can allow shorts, or I can, um, whatever you want to do. The way I'm running the strategy right now through Profit View is not using margin. It's only spot. I've been forward testing it since February, and everything's working good. But you know, if something goes wrong, I want to know about it before I get liquidated and lose everything. And this current we'll talk about these stops. The stop issue is its own conversation that might be worth making its own video about. But I'm using soft spots or stops, so it doesn't actually exit the position until candle close. So it waits until the price is confirmed on the close of the 4 hour. It does not place itself on the order book at the same time as the entry order, which is an important very important thing to distinguish because if you were using leverage, you don't have that luxury of doing what I'm doing because you could get liquidated and then you're just screwed. So like if you were using leverage, you would have to have a hard stop uh, take profit zones. Because I'm only using spot without market, I can get away with being more particular with which data points I want to calculate on, which saves us from a lot of volatility, especially in Bitcoin when you got all these murder wicks. You know, by the way, these exchanges they can see where you have your stop losses. Okay, they can see everybody on their exchange. Oh, look, the whole market has their stop loss at this value. We have how many Bitcoin? A billion? Well, I guess we could manipulate price action to liquidate our own people, couldn't we? And they do. If you don't think they are, they are. Let me tell you. Okay. So it pays to avoid the murder wicks, and the way to do that is to only consider the closing values. In fact, if you're like new to charting or anything, I would even encourage you to do this. Don't even look at the candlesticks. Just look at the close line, and that'll give you a much better signal with less distractions. And pretty much all of the calculations in my script are using the close values. There are a couple exceptions sometimes, like the simp. I'll use the HLC3 just because it's smoother, more of an average of the values than the close. There are certain situations. The simp, oh, but when I say simp, this is actually the symmetrically weighted moving average, which is like it's a four period by definition moving average where it depreciates the first and fourth values and accents the second and third. So it gives you this super smooth line. It's not really good for entries, but it is good for exits sometimes. So you can see how it hugs this curve and it just respects this so much. And then as soon as we close below it, up we keep going until the next consolidation or the accumulation area, right? So that's the simp. I reserve the color yellow for the simp when I do use it. This actually is a simp. Also, I believe the symmetrically weighted moving average, um, or symmetrical weighted price, simp. What else is there? Okay, this lead line. This is a special thing. This is the Hull moving average. There's a man named Alan Hull who invented it. He's got his own website. He like sells trade. I don't know what he sells, but he has a website where he talks about it and stuff. But it's all open source. It's a built-in indicator in TradingView now. But what I'm using right here, what's shown, this cyan color, aqua color, is it's kind of a modified Hull, and we can go into the calculations on later. Right now, I just want to introduce you to the different components of it. ATR. Oh, I've got debuggeries. So like if I wanted to, I could make sure that's working right. The Zima, we'll talk about that later. That's not being displayed. The ATR, so my stops are based off of the ATR. That's what these little red dots are. If they were being printed above, if I were in a short position, which I'm not, uh, if then they would be printing like these little green things up at the top. So basically, if we get a close, if we get a close below the ATR like we just did, then it exits right there. So we were up, and look at all these wicks I was dodging. This would have been a really good accumulation zone, like one of these right here, right? So if I had the re-entry setting on, which required margin, it would enter at that ATR because that's where your maximum reward to risk ratio is, right? If I'm using the ATR as the stop line, then it makes sense if you can accumulate on that stop line, you got maximum reward to risk. But I'm not using margin right now. And they gotta do that right now. They gotta take out the trash. All right. Going on. Mtrig settings. Oh, I've got a bunch of other stuff. So it's calculating the hash rate. So I could actually, if I wanted, okay, top bottom signifier. Right now it's showing the mtrig, which is redundant because I would already have the mtrig shown here, right? But we can set these signifiers at the top by default. On the bottom, I'm showing the volume, so I don't have one printed on the volume, but I could if I wanted to. We can set this, so, wrong one. Top signifier. So like, oh, I could have it show the hash rate of the network. So if the hash rate is growing, it prints these little green things, and if the hash rate is waning, it prints these little red things. And it's actually it's a surprisingly informative indicator to have when it comes to trading Bitcoin. You'd be surprised how well it works on the daily. I could have it display the Bitcoin volatility. I think it's referencing BitMEX's weekly bvol, but there are other bvols, right? So the orange would be, hey, it's more volatile. The blue would be it's less volatile, which is very useful if you're trying to trade these altcoins. So yeah, I've got a whole bunch of stuff like that in there. What do we say? Hash RSI, yeah, and you already know about these other ones. Multi-time frame. Okay, yeah, so these are just EMAs, all of them, all three of these. These ribbon things, I'm sure you've been wondering about. These ribbons are just EMAs. And the special thing about them, where they get their thickness from, is what I'm having it doing. Now we'll dive into the code later on. But if actually, so let me show you. So I can have, where's the button? Hmm, here. So here's the actual EMAs. I must have removed the button in my input. So there's the actual EMAs, and then it's got this buffer zone above and below it where it projects these barriers. And what that breadth is, it's the average wiggle room, the average change on its respective time frame of that indicator. So this is the 27 period EMA. The blue one is on the 4 hour, the red one is on the daily or the 2 day sometimes, the green is on the weekly, right? So for it to be this thick means that that indicator, that 27 period EMA, if it had, let's say it on average it moves X amount every two candlesticks. So it'll project that X amount to the top and to the bottom of the current value of the EMA to get these buffer zones. And I find these buffers to be very, very useful. Gives you like that extra little wiggle room. And I might refer to these as accumulation zones in some contexts. Like on the daily, they're very well respected. So you got like basically you've heard of the 28-day EMA, very popular. This 27-day EMA, but when you project these bands, it really shows you, hey, there's some wiggle room there. You can see the blue one, you can see the weekly one, and it's very well respected. The HMAs, this like I said, this aqua, this cyan band is an HMA. It's kind of a special type of an HMA that I made, which we'll dive into that later. That's no problem. And another time filter. Okay, and that's it. That's everything I really wanted to introduce before we got into the code. I want to make another video specifically about that issue of stop losses, unless I really covered it today. I don't know. Bear with me too as I learn how to edit videos. This is all completely new to me. I have no experience with video editing or any of this stuff. I'm making it up as I go, literally. So, all right. Thanks for watching.